Hi, it's Mimsy here. Today I'm going to talk to you about how to calculate yardage for a slipcover. So there's a few ways to go about this, and one of them is super simple, and that is just looking at a yardage calculator chart online. There's a ton of these available. I have one on my website. It's in the header called Yardage Calculator, and I'll put a link to that in the description box below. So you can just take a look at a picture of a piece of furniture that's similar to yours, and it'll give you an estimated yardage amount. The problem with that is they're all a little bit different. Most of them are referring to upholstery, which is slightly different than slipcovers, and there's a variation of about 4 yards on some of them. In this video, I'm going to show you how to calculate pretty much exactly the amount of yards that you need for your piece of furniture. And the reason why that's important, because if you're using an expensive fabric or something that's pricey, you don't want to overestimate and have a whole bunch left over, and you definitely don't want to underestimate and have to order more and potentially not be able to get it or get a different run. So this method will show you exactly the amount that you need for your piece of furniture. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so the first thing I do when I'm calculating yardage on a piece of furniture that I have in front of me is I'll print out my yardage worksheet. And I have this also, a link to this on my website. That link is below. Just fill out the form and I'll email you this worksheet if you need it. So it has on here the piece of furniture, the width, the height, how many of those pieces you need to cut, and any additional information. So we're gonna start with the pieces. So we have the inside back, the deck. This is called the deck, from the bottom of the inside back all the way to this front edge, and it'll depend upon where you want to start your skirt. On this upholstery project, there's Welt down here. I'm going to start with my Welt up here, so it'll just go to this edge. You have the inside arms, the outside arms, this piece here, so the front of the arm. You have the outside back, and then the skirt pieces. And I think that's it. Yeah, so that's it. So we'll write down all those and then we'll start the measurements. You're going to definitely need to have a soft tape measure like this. And I've got all of my pieces written down, or inside back, inside arm, outside, and so forth. Okay, so starting with the inside back, I'm going to measure from the bottom, and I like to tuck my fabric in about 3 inches. So we will start at the 3-inch mark down here. We'll go to the top of the chair all the way to the outside of the back, and that is 41 inches. And I'm going to add 2 inches to this for my seam allowance, so 43 inches for my width. 43 inches for my height. So the width, same thing. We want to tuck some fabric in there, so I'm going to give that 3 inches. So we'll start at the 3-inch mark over to here, 21 inches, plus 3 inches for a tuck in, so 24, and 2 inches for seam allowance, so 26 inches on the width. And then the outside. You always want to make sure that you measure at the widest point, and with a wing chair, sometimes they curve out. My sofa did curve out, so make sure that you are measuring at the widest point of your piece. This one is 21.5 plus 2 inches, so 22.5, and we'll go ahead and round it so we're not dealing with half inches, so 23 inches for the back piece. I'm just going to make sure that it is the same all the way down. Yes. Okay. And then the height. So we're going to go down to where the skirt is going to start. Now my platform or my deck is here, and my skirt is going to start right here at the top of my deck. So I can bring that around here. It's about 2 inches above my welt. So I'm going to go down to the welt, and that's 36 inches, and my 2-inch seam allowance, which will be that bit that I went to the deck. So 36 inches for my height on my outside back. Okay, so inside arms. So width on the inside arm. All right, so the way that this works is the outside arm will end here at the edge of this roll. So this will be the outside arm, and the inside arm will be from tucked into the wing, out to the edge, and around to that spot there. Okay, to the inside here is 20 inches. This obviously comes back further here. So let's see. We can bring it around like that. That's 28 inches. Actually, no, that's 26 inches to there. So plus 2 inches is 28. Because that curves back, I'm going to give myself an extra 2 inches. So we're going to make that 30 inches wide for the inside arm. And then the height up to the top of the arm, down to the deck is 32 inches. Plus 3 inches to tuck in at the bottom on the inside of the deck there. So that's 35 plus 2 for seam allowance. So 37 inches for the height of the inside arm. Now the outside arm. So the width from that seam to the back, and it goes out because it fans out up. We're going to go to 18 inches plus 2 inches seam allowance, so 20 inches. For the outside arm width and height, 33 inches. I'm going right down to this welt, even though the skirt is going to start 2 inches higher at the same height as my deck. So for my seam allowance, it'll be a total of 33 inches. Okay, so this piece here. Okay, so that's 42 inches plus seam allowance 44, and that's the height. And then the width at the widest part is going to be this part right here, which is 4 inches, so 6 inches on the width. So the deck. Now, there's a couple ways to make a slipcover with the inside back and the deck, and I generally don't put a seam here. I will actually run the fabric from the top down the inside back and down the deck to here. So that's the way I'm going to do this. Okay, so the inside back was 43 plus 19. So I'm just adding that to my inside back dimension, 19 inches. Okay, and then the widest part is down here where it tees out. So that's 24 plus 2, so 26 inches on the width. And that's what I already have for the inside back, is 26 inches. So I'm going to cross off my deck measurement because we don't need that. Okay, now for the skirt. So for the skirt, for upholstered skirts, there's always a lining on the back side of the skirt, but for a slipcover, I always do self-lined skirts because typically the reason why people make slipcovers is so they can be taken off and washed. And if you have a separate or a different kind of fabric back here, like a muslin or something, it's going to wash differently than this fabric for sure. So that's why I always self-line. What that means is I run my fabric down the front and fold it here, and then it goes right back up to my seam allowance, and it's right into that seam. So not only does that make it wash better, but it's a whole lot easier than trying to assemble a skirt panel like this. So the one thing that you want to be careful of when you're measuring for your skirt is that a lot of times the front of the chair is wider than the back of the chair, as with this one. So you've got to do all these measurements separate. So measure these all separate just like you would for all the other pieces, adding your 2-inch seam allowance. Then you want to make sure you account for the back panels, which I generally cut these 8 inches. This is a little smaller, but I generally cut them 8 inches. So now we're actually going to start adding this up in order to calculate how many yards of fabric we need to buy. So the first thing that we have to determine is the width of our fabric. Most decorator fabrics are 54 inches wide, sometimes 57 inches wide. I actually bought this fabric at Joann's, and this is the fabric I'm going to use for this chair. It's for my daughter's bedroom, and this is the one that she liked. This one is actually only 45 inches wide because it was an inexpensive decorator fabric. They have a section of 100% cotton, like I guess lower quality decorator fabrics, and it was only $5 a yard. So a deal. However, you do have to buy a little bit more because it's only 45 inches wide, and I'll explain to you why that is. So with the width of the inside back, we measured it at 26 inches across the inside back, including our tuck-in and our seam allowance. So with a 26-inch wide, I need 26-inch wide here. My fabric is only 45, so I'm only going to be able to get one cut out of this piece of fabric. If this was 54 inches, then I could get the inside back and the outside back out of one width of my 54-inch wide fabric, because I have 26-inch here and 23 inches on the back. So anyway, so let's go on and we'll total this up. So with our 43 and 19, we're gonna have a total of, 62 inches there. So 62 inches, so we'll write that down over here in this column. And then we have 36 inches on this one. We only need one piece at 36 inches, so we'll put that here. So this one here is 37 inches for the inside arm, and we need two of those. So what's that, 74? The inside arm, we need 33 inches. We've got two of those, so 66. And then the front arm, we need 44 inches. And now with this one, because it is only 6 inches wide, we can definitely get both of those pieces out of one width. So we're only going to put 44 inches here because we need two of those. Okay, so same thing here with the inside arm. The width is 20 inches, so that's only 40 inches. So we can get actually two of those out of one width, the inside arm. So let's make this one 33 instead of 66. All right, and then with the skirt front, we need 28 inches high, because remember, we are going to self-line the skirt. So we'll put 28 here, and the back will also be 28. And then the two sides, those are 25. Yeah, so those are all too wide. Okay, so then we're gonna need 28 times 2, which is gonna be 56. Okay, so now we'll total those all up. So let me grab my calculator and we'll total that up. Okay, so it's a total of 361 inches. We're going to divide that by 36. 10 yards. Okay, so according to my worksheet, I need 10 yards of fabric for this. I am actually not going to probably put a skirt on this, so I could eliminate all these. But here's a big difference between a 45-inch wide fabric and a 54. So if I had a 54-inch wide piece of fabric, I would be able to get these two pieces out of one width of fabric. I would be able to get these two pieces out of one width of fabric, and I would be able to get these two pieces out of one width of fabric. So if I had 54-inch wide fabric, this would probably be 4 yards less. I could do this chair with a self-line skirt in 6 yards. So, but I got this fabric for $5 a yard, so it's still cheaper than probably a 54-inch wide, which would be probably about $20 at the cheapest fabric that I could find. Anyhow, so 10 yards. A couple other things that you have to consider is pattern. And if you are going to pattern match, then you're going to need additional fabric. And I would say you probably need 20% more fabric if you have a pattern, especially a large pattern. So with a large pattern fabric, this one's a small pattern. So with this one, the pattern matching will be quite easy. If you have a large pattern where it's a big floral, and you must have that big floral pattern here in the center, and you need to have that same exact pattern on the cushion, and then that pattern needs to run down the front of your cushion, down the front of your skirt, onto the deck and down the front of your skirt. You have to keep that in mind because you need to be able to match up those patterns. And then you might even need to match up the pattern from the inside arm over the top of the arm as well. So you've got to keep that in mind. You need extra fabric for that. And then for welt, you're going to need extra fabric for your welt. There will be some offcuts here that you could potentially use, so you want to calculate extra fabric for your welt. If you're doing a chair, I always do 1 more yard of fabric for the welt. If you're doing a sofa, you'll want to do 2 yards for the welt. We also need another 1 more yard for the cushion. So we're looking at potentially 12 yards of fabric for this chair. That's a lot. Okay, so let's talk about this yardage, because 12 yards seems like a lot of fabric for this chair, but there is quite a bit of waste on this. And so let me show you what we've got. With this arm, there is going to be quite a bit of waste. We need to cut out a square of fabric to go from back here, tucked in, and then straight. Let me show you. So we've got to keep the pattern of our fabric running in the same direction, you know. So this piece of fabric has got to go all the way to the top and then make its way around this arm to that other seam. So you see we have all this waste that's going to be cut off. So we could potentially use that bit of fabric for some welt. So you could reduce your welt amount by a little bit, but really we only calculated 1 yard of welt for this. So anyway, it seems like a lot of fabric, but because of the curves of this chair and the style of this chair, there is going to be a bit of waste. If you have a piece of furniture that is completely square, like my sofas that I did just recently in this video here, that there's almost no waste because everything is just real square and straight. So there's no waste there. So anyway, that's why this seems like a lot of yardage. The other thing is because this is only 45 inches wide. Had it been a 54-inch wide or 57-inch wide piece of fabric, we could get away with potentially 7 yards for this chair with a fully self-lined skirt. And then if we eliminate the skirt altogether, you could potentially do this chair in 4.5, 5 yards even, possibly, depending upon pattern matching. So anyway, that's how you measure for a slipcover if you want to get the exact amount of yardage that you need for a slipcover, is measure it out with this method. And if you want to get that worksheet, go ahead to the link down below for the worksheet and I'll send it to you in an email. And if you're interested in watching me do the cutting and pinning of this slipcover, I'm getting ready to do that. That video is next. You can watch it right here.